Welcome everyone to the Defender for Cloud in the Field. Thank you for your audience. I truly appreciate that our numbers are growing steadily. Make sure to subscribe to the Microsoft Security channel. We have the AKA link below that you can just type and see all the episodes that we have released so far. And in today's episode, we have someone that was with us last year, bringing some news about a new capability that we released at RSA. Welcome back, my friend Amit Biton.
Hey Yuri, how are you? It's great to be back here. The greatest show on the net.
Yes, we were waiting for a really long time to have this episode because this feature has been in private preview. Customers were testing and they love the feature, so we are looking forward to have this episode recorded now that the cat is out of the bag at RSA and everyone is testing and using this capability. Let's dive into it. So let's start talking about what it is, the governance capability.
Yeah. So you mentioned it. We published and we launched this experience, the governance experience today. So it's live, and everything that I'm showing and talking about today, it's accessible from Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So to talk about what is the security governance experience, so I first need to describe the problem that it comes to solve. So with the ever-growing cloud and hybrid environments comes a rapid evolving of threat actors and threat landscape. And in order to be at the top of their games, security teams that are responsible for the security posture in organizations, so they need to make sure continuously that security vulnerabilities and misconfigurations are remediated, which in most cases, and especially in enterprise organizations, the remediation task can be taken by only the security teams that are usually a central team that are involved with the whole security status and posture of their environments. So it's not only about them to remediate and resolve these resources and misconfiguration and vulnerabilities. And it happens because a lot of reasons. If I would mention a few, so it's the lack of knowledge, it's the lack of permissions, the lack of the resources from their side. So these remediation actions should be performed and should be taken by the resource owners most of the times. And as I said, mostly in large organizations, enterprise organizations. So this is when the security teams tasks become very tedious and sometimes not achievable, because think of what they need to do. They need to monitor the security posture. They need to find the misconfiguration, to go over all security recommendations in Microsoft Defender for Cloud. They need to find for each resource the correct owner to assign to the task. They need to assign the task to the owners. They need to letting the owners know. They need, after that, to track progress of the completion of those tasks. They need to notify the owners when they're running out of time. And these all tasks are, as I said, very difficult for the security teams to perform. So with that, today, as I said, we launched the security governance experience. With this experience, we try to provide security teams a standardized way to drive the people in the organization to take remediation actions in order to enhance their security posture, the organizational security posture. And this is all implemented by our new experience that is taking place using an automatic approach with new primitives and objects that we defined, which called governance rules.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. And just to give a perspective to everyone watching this episode, This episode was recorded on June 6th, on the day that RSA is starting. That's why Amit is saying that today we release. But probably when you watch this episode, is it going to be already July or end of June? So to give a perspective, today means June 6th, the day that RSA starts, we release this capability. And it's an excellent feature. We've been waiting for this for a long time because Amit precisely described the problem that this feature is here to resolve. And it's a big problem. We've been working with customers that are having some struggles to remediate the amount of recommendation because of the workload owners. They don't have fully visibility, and sometimes they don't have access to the platform. So this is a great feature. So what are the permissions and privilege that I need to have in order to create those governance rules?
Yeah. So in order to create and define those governance rules, then you need to be at least a security admin on the subscription level. If you define the rule on a subscription, you can also, I did not mention it, but you can also use this feature to monitor, to assign tasks to owners, to track progress of your AWS and GCP environments. So you need to be a security admin on the subscription if you use subscription rules, or if you do it for your account or a project for AWS and GCP correspondingly, then you need to be a security admin on the connector level.
Got it. Okay. And
Yeah.
will the owners of the rules receive a notification via email when a rule is about to expire, something like that?
This is a great question. So when we try to tackle this problem, and we try to address or to form a solution for that problem, we we marked ourselves like three aspects that we need to cover when we want to provide the security teams the correct way to perform those actions. So the first aspect will be assigning the owner to set accountability. This is the first thing that they need to do once they monitor their environment. They need to assign owners to all security recommendations in order for the personnel in the whole organization to get accountability. So this is the first aspect. The second aspect is after recommendations was assigned to people, then the security teams need to track progress. So tracking progress of completion of these tasks is the second aspect that we understood that we need to address. And the last one, the third one, is driving to action. Once we monitor and we understand that the security actions, the remediation processes is not or are not aligned with our expectations and the timelines that we defined, then we of course need to knock on people's door. So this is the drive to action aspect, and yes, this is done by a weekly notification email that we allow the security teams to schedule to be sent to the owners.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So is this email can be customized?
Currently not. Currently, we formed like a weekly summary of all the recommendations that are assigned to the owner. Every owner will get an email notification for a subscription that he owned. Currently, this is not customizable. And yeah, and another aspect, which is another feature that we added, is that not only the resource owners are about to get notifications, email notifications, so the security teams are able also to tell, okay, I want to notify also the managers of the owners. So they can schedule notification emails to the managers of the owners with overdue recommendations. So this way, we think that driving to action will be or can be done in a more robust way, in a more holistic
Okay.
way. Yeah.
So when you establish this timeline for a rule, right? Let's say this recommendation needs to be remediated in the next 2 weeks. Is it possible to extend or give like an extra time in case the owner didn't take an action or if the owner needs more time?
Yeah. Yeah. Another great question. So by now, I've talked only about the security teams, the problem that they have to drive the organization to resolve issues. But another set of users are the audience of this feature, and these are the workload owners, right? The resource owners. So once resource owners was or were assigned uh, as the owner of a recommendation, then we added a functionality for them to be able to get into the recommendation list and filter the recommendations to see only what's important for them, what's assigned on them. So this way they'll be able to see what's in it for them. They'll be able to drill down, understand what they need to do, and of course, they can also perform a more advanced actions like changing the owner, delegating the task to someone else, or as you said, providing an ETA on when they expect this recommendation to be resolved. So it actually provide clarity and transparency in the whole organization.
Is
Yeah.
that what the grace period does, or what is the difference between this and the grace period?
Okay, grace period, it's like a new terminology here in this show. Period is another feature that we are adding to this very experience. And let's say that we want to assign recommendation across all our environments, and we want to assign it to different owners, and we want to set a remediation timeframe to this recommendation, and we also want to say that the due date that we expect this recommendation to be resolved by is next week. So we can choose to apply grace period on these very specific recommendations. So by the time that the resource is not reaching the due date, we can say that we don't want to impact the secure score. So this is what a grace period is about, to not affecting the secure score while the resource or the recommendation is on time and is not reaching the remediation time frame that was defined
That's
here.
excellent. Well, that's really good because we heard this feedback in the past from customers. They wanted to have a time where they could work on the recommendation, and during this time that they were working on the recommendation, they didn't want the secure score to be affected. So it's amazing that to see that this came to fruition.
Yeah, a great example for that, and you and myself, Yuri, were in tons of discussions with users about it. Like a great example is the system updates, patching. A lot of organizations are using the patching Tuesday routine. So during the days, so during the weeks, they want to accept the risk. They don't want to affect the secure score because the next cycle of patching will be next Tuesday. So this is a great example for implications for the grace
Yep,
period.
yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And is this feature also available via API or right now is only UI?
Yeah, it's accessible via the API. You can create rules. You can consume the data via the API. Um, all and I can say it as in general, when we created this experience, we realized that um, it can be very, very valuable for huge organization and for enterprise organization to be honest. and we wanted to provide the most robust experience that we can. So it's all accessible via the UI, via the API. You can also access the data and consume it via Azure Resource Graph.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good. Very good. And the governance rules that you apply is based on subscription, right? So there is if there is any way to do that for multiple subscription at once?
So today, at first step, it is declared, the governance rule is declared on a subscription or on a GCP project or on an AWS account, one by one. You can do it today with by scripting using the API. You can do it by using Azure Policy. And I must say that today we are working on a way to provide a net scale experience for that, to be able to create rules that will be effective for the whole environment
Okay, but
and not
you
only.
just mentioned that Azure policy is available, so there will be an Azure policy for this as well.
Yeah, yeah. You can use Azure Policy to interact with the API that we provided, so you can create rules in a large scale,
Nice,
in a like an organizational wide
awesome,
manner.
awesome, very cool. You have a demo to show to us, right?
Yeah, yeah, I
All
do.
right, so let's go to the demo.
Now, I want to have like a very short demo because this is a huge feature. This is like a very robust experience that I can talk about like for hours. So I'll try to perform a very short demo that will demonstrate this feature, the strengths, the problem that we're facing, all the pivots of information, how to consume it, how to configure it. And this is what I'm going to show in this demo. So I want to start not by showing you how to configure the governance rules, right? Because a configuration is like, I see it as a technical depth, okay? So I want to start from showing you what are you getting by using this experience, what you can consume, what is the value that you can get by using this experience. So we can start from we will start from this page, the overview page of Microsoft Defender for Cloud, and here, at a glance, you can just see that we are using like a new terminology, right? We have the terminology that the total recommendations that we are all familiar with, and we are start talking about overdue recommendations, and we are start talking about unassigned recommendations. So now we will going to drill down into the pages, the pivot of informations to see what is it all about. So we said that this feature is about helping the security teams or allow them to drive the organization towards taking remediation actions, right? So we'll start by seeing how it is all look like in the recommendations page. This is the first pivot that I want to talk about. The recommendations page is actually showing us with a list of security recommendations that are continuously assessed to find misconfiguration and vulnerabilities, and is all summarized here in this page. So if the goal of the feature is to provide the security teams with a way to assign owners to recommendations, then in this page, we want to understand what are the tasks that are available. First of all, what are all the tasks that are available in my environment? What are the recommendations that should be resolved? We added here new filters and new columns, a new piece of information that is about to tell us the governance story. So now, when we have this list, then we can filter this list and we can choose to see information about only overdue recommendations or only unassigned recommendations. Okay, we can filter this list by these statuses that we added. We can also choose to see recommendations that are assigned on a specific owner. We can see the list of all owners in our environments that they have recommendations that they are assigned to and they need to comply with. So these are the filters that we have. We have here new column that shows the status of each and every recommendation for us to be able to focus on what's important for us. Another thing that we added here is this toggle here at the top right corner. So this toggle that tells show my items only is about to help resource owners and actually people that are assigned to recommendations. It helps to provide them with the clarity, and it provides them like a focus, a laser focus of what's in it for them, what they need to comply with, what they need to remediate and take action upon. Okay, so using this, they are narrowed down the list of all recommendations to see only what's important for them and what's assigned on them. So,
And this is based on
as
the identity of the user, right?
yeah, this is based on the identity of the owner. Um, yeah, exactly. The identity of the logged in user
Okay,
in the portal.
cool.
Yeah. So let's just take, for an example, let's just narrate app. Okay, so let's, for an example, choose um, let's choose this recommendation to drill through and to see how it looks inside. So inside this recommendation, we can, as we always did, we can get the list of all affected resources, but now we also have the context of the ownership over this over each resource. We can see the ownership, we can see the due date, the remediation timeframe that was assigned on each resource, and we can also see the status, whether the due date was passed or not. So this is how it looks inside each and every recommendation. And as I said, we can also perform actions upon these resources, and we can also say, let's assume that I'm the resource owner and I'm getting into this page and I'm seeing myself as the owner. I see that the due date was passed, and now I want to perform actions. Which actions can I perform? So I can change owner. Let's say I want to delegate the task, the recommendation to someone else. Then I can do it. And I also can change the ETA. Changing the ETA, it's important to understand that it's not changing the due date, because we still need to understand that this resource is out of the date. It's out of the period that was defined for it to be resolved. But as the resource owner, I want to set clarity among all the organization, for the people in the organization to understand that I'm planning a remediation of that for a specific date, and I have to also enter a justification for that, so everyone has clarity about what is going on and what is the status of this task. Okay, let's save it. What I can also do is I can see that a resource here has no owner. I can manually assign owner to this resource that we are seeing here with no owner. So this resource will be assigned and will be tracked further. This is also can be done. You can set the due date to this resource, and you can also apply grace period for that. Okay, these are the actions that we can take when we are dealing with recommendations.
And
So,
quick question here, Amit. When you are dealing with those recommendations and you need to make these changes, right? Which privilege do you have to have?
yeah, so you need to be the security admin.
Okay.
You need to be at least the security admin of the subscription in order to assign recommendations to people.
But
Yeah.
to make those changes, you also need to be security admin, right?
Yeah, exactly as if you were to define the governance rules.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so this was the first pivot. The first pivot was to go to recommendation, ask yourselves what are the tasks that needed to be completed, uh, and then drill down to see the actual resources affected and to see the actual owners of each and every resource. So this was the first pivot. The second pivot is by asking if I try to put it into a question. So the next pivot will be about asking who are the people that should resolve recommendation, that should remediate resources. So uh, this is the second pivot, the pivot of the who. Okay, so we went to security posture page and we clicked and selected the owner tab here, and there is a list of all owners in my environment. They need to that needed to comply with recommendations. We are seeing how many recommendations they have assigned on them. We can see the severity of those recommendations that they need to comply with, and we can navigate to see each and every one of those recommendations filtered by the actual owner in the recommendations page by selecting these few recommendations. Okay, so this was the second pivot of information. And before I'm moving to the third pivot, I want to start talking about the governance rules, right? The way that it's all being configured. Um, so, as I said, this is something that is defined on the subscription level. So, let's select a subscription. I selected a subscription from the list in the environment settings page, and then I can see a new menu item here that is called governance rules. So I will select the governance rule menu item, and here I'm getting to a page where I can see all the governance rules that are defined in my subscription, and I can also create new rules to automatically apply on resources and recommendations in my subscription. So let's see how it's all being set. So I'll add new rule, and in this new page, I have to configure the rule parameters. Okay, it starts with the general details of what the rule is about. Let's say that I want to cover all medium severity recommendations. Okay, so let's say it, let's call it mid severity recommendations. All right, I can put a description of what am I trying to achieve by setting this rule, and I have to, after that, to provide a priority to the rule, because I can have conflicts between rules, because a rule can be constructed by a list of recommendations. So if a recommendation appears in more than one rule, I need to define precedence. Okay. So the lower the priority, the first the rule to run. Okay, so let's make it just, I don't know, first priority. And after I defined the name and the priority of the rule, then I want to define the condition, like what is the set of recommendations that this rule will be applied for. So I can do it by select specific recommendation, select recommendations by severity, or I can select specific recommendations and look for the desired recommendations here and select them one by one. The name that I gave to this rule is actually implying that I'm going to use by severity. So let's say that I want to set accountability and set remediation time frame for all medium severity in my environments. So I want to choose this one. And now I'm going to select the owner to set the ownership over the recommendations that will be identified and will be triggered for this rule. So here I have two options. The first option is manually by an email address. I can put an email address here, and every new resource that will be affected by the recommendations that I defined here will be getting the email that I enter here as the owner. This is the first option. And the other option, which is something that a lot of our users and specifically large and enterprise organizations, they are using Azure tags in order, and not only Azure tags, but tags in general, in order to specify attributes or properties of a resource. And one of the implication of that is that organizations are tagging resources with their owners, with the owner's information. So we provide organizations to use their already predefined configuration and ownership setup in order for them to use this new experience. So we want to use a resource tag and in order to determine the owner. And after that, I will select the remediation timeframe, the timeframe that I expect to be valid for me until these kind of recommendations will be resolved. Let's say it's going to be 30 days, and then I can or cannot. I can choose whether I want to apply grace period or not. And here I am choosing whether I want to notify owners and notify direct managers of the owners on violations and on a remediation process that are out of time. Now, after creating this rule, then this rule is effective and is actually working on new resources and new recommendations of the type that I was just defined. But we understand that we need to support an already existing recommendations in already existing environment. So we are providing a capability to assign ownership to already existing recommendations that we find that match the condition that we've just defined.
Congratulations! I know that you've been working very hard for this feature, so I'm glad to see that it's now in public preview.
Yeah, and why I wanted to first show the creation of rules is because the third way to see and consume the governance information is using the governance report. Because when we created rules, then we actually said we are interested in monitoring and keeping tracking progress over set of recommendations. So we might want to understand the completion status of these rules, of the specific recommendations that we defined here, right? So using this governance report, then we are able to go and move rule by rule and understand the completion status of each and every rule that we defined. So we can track progress of the areas of interest that we defined here. Yeah,
Yeah, so this workbook also comes built in already on the platform, or they have to import?
yeah, it's a built-in workbook that we can already see in the platform. And once I select a rule, then we can see here all information about the owners that have a role in this rule, the recommendations that we can see under this rule. So we can have a full visibility over this area of interest that we defined. Yeah.
That looks great. Looks very cool. All right, Amit. I think that this
Thank you.
was a great overview. A lot of things to talk about, and I'm glad you were able to summarize everything and show the different aspects, the different experience, the experience from the recommendation, the experience from the creation of the rule, and the workbook. So thank you very much for your time on that.
Thank you very much, Yuri. Thank you for that, for the time and for listening.
Absolutely, my friend. Thank you. All right, everyone. This
Thank
is
you.
a wrap for today's episode. Thank you very much for your audience. Again, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell so you can get notifications when new videos are uploaded to the Microsoft Security channel. Thank you for your participation and see you again next time.